Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Hayes, and I'm one of the program coordinators here on the Marshall Motley Scholars Program team. I have with me today Adria Kimbrough, our student recruiting manager. Hey, Adria, how are you today?
Hi, Christine. I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. We both want to just thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We know that many of you were able to join us for our application launch webinar on November 9th with the Law School Admission Council. We had such a great turnout, but we weren't able to answer all of your questions. So we're here to address those questions and also offer you additional resources as you prepare your application. We want to encourage you also to continue visiting the website, especially the frequently asked questions section, and review our application guide and brochure that go into further detail about eligibility, program details, benefits, and the application and selection process. If you have any application questions, please contact the help team on Kaleidoscope at help@mykaleidoscope.com. And for more program-related questions, you can reach out to us at marshall-motley@naacpldf.org. So let's jump into it and get started. So, Adria, I have a question for you. We're going to start with just eligibility and the application and selection process. Someone asked, do students have to begin law school in the fall? And are you required to live in the South while enrolled in the program?
That's a great question, Christina. Great way to kick off to talk about eligibility. So, yes, students will have to begin law school in the fall. Our program is only open to first year full-time students who are enrolling in the fall semester. So for this cycle, the 2023-2024 application cycle, applicants should be planning to enroll in law school for the fall of 2024. Now, regarding the South, you do not have to live in the South to apply for the program, nor are you required to attend a law school in the South. However, the 2-year fellowship portion of our program and the 8 years of practice that will follow must be based in the South as defined by the program. And there are 13 states you can see on our website that constitute the South for our purposes. The program's commitment is to develop aspiring civil rights attorneys who will practice in the South, as this is where a majority of Black Americans live and where racial inequality remains deeply entrenched, which is integral to the mission of our program. So now, with that, let's talk a little bit more about eligibility, Christina. One of the questions that we received was from an attendee who asked, am I eligible to participate in the Marshall Motley Scholars Program if I am not a citizen?
That is also a great question. So only U.S. citizens and students with permanent resident status who are also admitted to an ABA-approved law school are eligible for this program. If you're not sure, you can confirm ABA accreditation on the American Bar Association's website, and that's americanbar.org. Moving on, we'll go to our next question. Adria, for students who completed their degree online, what kind of recommendation letters are acceptable?
So thanks for that question, Christina. Every applicant for our program must have 2 letters of recommendation. And we ask that one of those recommendations should be from a professor, unless it's been more than 5 years since you've obtained your undergraduate degree. Now, we understand and know that this may be difficult for applicants who complete their degree online because they've not had an opportunity to develop perhaps some of the same relationships with faculty members and professors. So if you are in that situation and are unable to obtain a recommendation from a professor, there are some other acceptable recommender sources, which would include employers, pre-law advisors, or other professionals who can speak directly to your experience in and your commitment to civil rights and racial justice. They should also be able to attest to your substantive qualities and any activities that would qualify you or make you competitive to be a Marshall Motley Scholar. Your letter should include some specific examples of this, and also be sure to mention your relationship to the recommender. Now, speaking of the application, Christina, talk to us about some examples on the application, ways in which people can demonstrate a commitment to working for racial justice before they start law school. And what if perhaps they don't have an extensive history of work in the civil rights field or racial justice space, but they certainly do have a passion to do this work after law school? Should they still apply?
That is an excellent question. By now, many of you have probably heard the phrase repeated demonstrated commitment as being the key to the Marshall Motley Scholars Program application. And for more information, we do want to direct you to our demonstrated commitment webinar that was recently sent out. But to just summarize, scholars should be able to show that they're purposeful and committed, resilient, prepared to lead, and are connected to pursuing racial justice alongside Black communities in the South. Some of you may already have that tangible work that shows your commitment to Black communities, to racial justice, and to the South. But overall, you can consider including examples such as your lived experiences in the South and with racial injustice, any familial connections you have, work or an internship experiences that show that commitment to advocating for Black communities or the South and racial justice. If you have research or coursework related to the history, the culture, and the challenges that Black communities face, you can also include your involvement in campus and extracurricular activities, community service or community organizing, or public advocacy and activism. So we hope that that's a large enough range of activities that will help you in showing that demonstrated commitment in your application. So now we're going to move on. And this was one of our most popular questions, Adria. So are you ready? And many people, they said, you're telling us what to do, but we need to know what not to do. So can you tell us what are some of the common pitfalls that you see from prospective applicants?
Sure, I'd love to do this because we want to ensure that every applicant has an opportunity to put their best foot forward in this process. So I want to give you a few tips of things that we have seen that can be pitfalls and give you some tips in terms of how to prepare your application. So one of the first things, and this goes without saying, but we will say it, is that please make sure you know the name for this program and that you're able to pronounce it correctly, because we do have video submissions that are a part of our application. And certainly you may mention the name of the program. It is the Marshall Motley Scholars Program. Marshall is usually pretty easy. Motley is the one that hangs some people up. And so make sure that you know that it's Motley as opposed to Motley or any other pronunciation. It's the Marshall Motley Scholars Program. Speaking of the video submissions, simple things in terms of recording, making sure that you are speaking clearly during your video recordings. Ensure that your recording space is free of clutter, so there are not any things in the background that may distract our viewers. And be sure to look directly at the camera, as I hope that you and I are doing here today. We also want to note that this is a scholarship to support your educational advancement and your living expenses for your legal education. So what this means is that the funds are intended to be used for this purpose as opposed to expenses unrelated to that endeavor. So you want to be sure that any responses reflect the fact that this is an investment in your individual pursuit to achieve the law degree and to become a civil rights attorney. You also want to tailor your materials toward the mission of the program, which by now you know that we are committed to the pursuit of racial justice on behalf of, alongside of Black communities in the South. So your materials should speak to that mission versus simply submitting the exact same materials that you will use for your law school applications. Certainly those materials are a very good start, but you want to be able to pull that thread. So whether it's your letters of recommendation, your personal statement, the essays, or any other component, to be able to see that commitment to racial justice, to the South, to Black communities, and to tie that in throughout your application. Finally, and this is something we have seen really every year, is the recommendation letters and the timely submission of those recommendation letters. You want to be sure that you follow up with your recommenders to ensure that they have submitted successfully by the deadline. If there are any questions about the technical aspect of that, you can always email the Kaleidoscope Help Desk, which is the application platform that we use, And certainly you can email the Marshall Motley Scholars team to confirm that, so that those missing letters of recommendation don't stand in the way of you being considered for our program. And then finally, you want to make sure that you have taken either the LSAT or the GRE at least once in time to receive your scores before our February 2nd deadline. That deadline requires every piece of the application to be submitted, including the test scores. Now, for this year, that means you would have need to taken, if it's the LSAT, you would need to have done that by January 2024 to ensure that your scores come in time for the submission of our application. An application without a test score will be considered incomplete, and we would hate for that to stand in the way of you being considered. So now, Christina, speaking of the LSAT and the timing and the taking, this is a question I think is important to ask. We received, and it was, can I update my application at a later date if I want to retake the LSAT, mean taking it more than once? And then on that same point, is an applicant's LSAT score the most important factor in the application, and how much weight does it hold in the review process?
That is a great question. The LSAT or GRE score is required for the MMSP application to be considered complete and obviously to enroll in law school. Please know that though they are required components, the review committee is committed to taking a holistic approach in evaluating each application. In fact, the committee will not even see your test scores. So some of you can breathe a sigh of relief. And if you would like to update your scores, you may log into the Kaleidoscope platform to edit that section. If you have been accepted into law school and would like to update your application with that information, feel free to email us, the Marshall Motley team, or you can also log into Kaleidoscope and again, edit that section of the application. And again, as a reminder, you'll be able to continue making updates to your application until the closing date of February 2nd, 2024. So let's move on. Our next question. Someone asked, how do you all assist scholars professionally with interest in other areas of law that may intersect with civil rights law? Will an interest in healthcare law, immigration law, tax law, et cetera, particularly affecting access for Black individuals in the South, still be considered a good enough why for the Marshall Motley Scholarship? Adrian, please answer that. Let us know.
Yes, no, absolutely. So the Marshall Motley Scholars Program was really created to alleviate the financial burden, which was one of the reasons, at least, to alleviate the financial burden of legal education for those interested in pursuing civil rights law with a racial justice focus. Now, one of the wonderful things about civil rights law is that it is truly interdisciplinary, and it intersects with so many other areas of law. So the key for any applicant who is interested in some of those other areas that may intersect with civil rights law is to connect the dots for us and to show that the focus of the work that they hope to do is on racial justice and advocacy for Black communities in the South, even if it intersects with another area. So for example, we have current scholars who are interested in environmental justice, which then is the intersection of environmental law and civil rights law. We also have scholars who are interested in economic justice and reproductive justice and the ways in which the laws in that area have a disparate impact on Black communities. All of these interests are certainly welcome and would fit the mission of the Marshall Motley Scholars Program, as long as those dots can be connected to the cause of racial justice. Of course, civil rights also intersects with so many other areas: education law, criminal law, and laws related to political participation and voting rights. We support our scholars in all of these interests and really work to help scholars find internship opportunities as well as fellowship opportunities that will align with those areas and their interests. So, Christina, speaking of our scholars, people want to know more about them. Can you talk a little bit about the demographics of our current cadre of Marshall Motley scholars?
Absolutely. So first of all, the Marshall Motley Scholars Program is open to all demographics. And for that reason, our scholars are also a diverse group of individuals with varied backgrounds and experiences. Similar to most law schools, the majority of scholars have already taken off 1 to 3 years before applying. However, we also have scholars who enter the program directly from undergrad. Some scholars are from the South, but not all. That's another common question, we receive. Remember, the most important factor is that demonstrated commitment to racial justice alongside Black communities in the South. So you want to keep that in mind. All right, Adria, we're making great progress here. Our next question has to do with the internship process. Someone asked, how are the summer internships determined for scholars?
Great question, because this is one of the added benefits of being a Marshall Motley Scholar. So Marshall Motley Scholars undergo a matching process to determine their internship placement. So there's a closed universe, if you will, of organizations that are a diverse pool of groups that are doing civil rights work throughout the South. And those organizations host our scholars each summer. The scholars have an opportunity to identify the organizations that they are most interested in. And then those same organizations are also able to select scholars that they would like to interview and potentially hire for the summer. And really, this process is designed to intentionally pair each scholar with an opportunity that not only will be a good fit for both the scholar, but also the organization. And the process also ensures that every single scholar will have an internship each summer of their law school careers. So you have 2 summers of internships, and then after the graduation of law school or from law school, there's the 2-year fellowship. And so, Christina, our next question is related to that. And the question is, are fellowships chosen for Marshall Motley Scholars? And if you can talk a little bit about how that process works.
Thank you. So first of all, no, the fellowships are not chosen for scholars. Scholars will also undergo a matching process for the fellowship portion of the Marshall Motley Scholars Program. LDF will work with partners to help place participants and will also provide guidelines for the participant partner organizations just to ensure that the training and exposure the scholar receives provides adequate training for a future career in civil rights law. Okay, Adria, our next question has to do with the employment period. Are scholars able to do judicial clerkships, private practice focused on civil rights issues, et cetera?
Absolutely. Certainly, I'll speak first to the judicial clerkships. Clerkships are a wonderful experience that can add and enhance the legal education and certainly add some dimension to people as they enter the profession and as they go about their legal practice. And that's something we welcome. We want our scholars to be able to have the benefit of that experience. So Marshall Motley Scholars can do judicial clerkships, and they can defer their participation in the fellowship portion of the program for up to 2 years while they complete a judicial clerkship. Likewise, if for some reason they want to pursue a clerkship during the practice phase, that is also acceptable for a 2-year period. Regarding private practice, in the 8 years of practice following the fellowship, scholars may pursue private practice provided that 75% or more of their caseload involves racial justice advocacy on behalf of African Americans and that they are doing that work in the South and for African Americans in the South. So private practice is certainly something that is welcome and is accepted for those 8 years of practice.
Wonderful. Well, that's going to wrap up this webinar. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and we hope that this information will be helpful to you in submitting the most thorough application possible. Again, if you have any additional questions, you can email help@mykaleidoscope.com or marshall-motley@naacpldf.org. We wish you the best. Bye-bye.